The full text of the new stimulus bill has been released, including $15 billion for new targeted EIDL advance funding. This is huge news. I'm going to go through what's in the text because it changes who qualifies for targeted EIDL advances, and we have new data on who's received their targeted EIDL advance email from the SBA and what to do if you're still waiting. But the big news here is this legislation. I'm going to talk about it here and compare it to the bill that passed in December. Hey everyone, this is Ryder from Skip. I hope you're doing well. It's Saturday, February 20th. I hope your weekend is off to a good start. Very quick video today, but it's super important because this new legislation is out. I'm not going to go through all 600 pages. This is the $1.9 trillion legislation, but I am going to focus in on the targeted EIDL advances because who qualifies has been changed, and I will talk about some of the other highlights as well. Watch until the end of this quick video and hit subscribe so we can let you know if and when you need to take action for these grants or other grant or funding programs. And by the way, we are giving away $1,000 on Monday. All you have to do is download our free app in the App Store or Google Play. Just search Hello Skip. You'll find it right here. We're so grateful for all of you who've jumped on our app and are using it, and not only using it, but giving us feedback and sharing it and telling others. Our team is dedicated to providing resources for you. So to enter the $1,000 giveaway on Monday, just download the app. Of course, you can read all of our articles. You can set up your trackers here as well, but set up the EIDL tracker, for example. You can see how much you potentially are eligible for based on the past legislation. Now, this may change with the new legislation, by the way. And you can also see the percent of people eligible for new EIDL grant funding, and this is based on the low income area provision, which I'm going to talk about. So if you don't have this yet, you're missing out. As far as I know, we have the only EIDL grant tracker out there. So go to Hello Skip in the App Store, and we will choose a $1,000 winner on Monday, and we plan to do the same thing the following week as well. Of course, if you're a veteran to our channel, you know that since around July or August, we've been giving away 100% of our YouTube revenue back to users of our app and subscribers of our channel. And we're going to continue to do this. It's important to us to try to do as much as we can to help others. So here's the legislation. But by the way, we did a poll yesterday. Over 1,000 of you have voted so far, asking this question: have you gotten a targeted EIDL grant email from the SBA yet? And it's very interesting to see the results. 75% of you say no, but 25% say yes. And this fraction hasn't changed. I mean, we have enough votes now. So a quarter of you have been lucky enough to get an SBA email to go to the portal. Again, I talked about those in other videos. For example, what the email looks like from the SBA, and then what the new portal looks like when you are invited to fill out a targeted EIDL grant application. If you're still waiting, you're not alone. You're with the majority of people, so keep that in mind. I always like to give perspective here. And we put this up on the blog and app. What to do if you haven't received your invitation to apply for the targeted EIDL advance. I'll just show you briefly here, but of course you'll want to double check your eligibility, prepare for the application by watching our videos about that, and in some cases reach out to the SBA. And probably most importantly is to don't put all your eggs in one basket. Most of you are big fans of the EIDL grants, but we have a dedicated team now that is researching grants and loans and funding options at the state and local levels. And those are often competitive as well, but you can get access to those on the app by clicking new grant opportunities right here. And we do a roundup twice a week for Skip Plus members. For example, here's the one from Friday where we go over several new grants and loans as of Friday, and we'll be doing a new one Monday. So those come out twice a week. But without further ado, the big news here. House Democrats released this yesterday. Compared to the one in December, it's shorter, so I just want to make that note. The one in December was 5,593 pages. This one, a light read at 591. So, maybe in a future video I'll talk about some more of the highlights here, especially the stimulus checks. But nothing has changed with regards to the stimulus checks. I've talked about that in detail, $1,400 and the income thresholds. Again, they're calling this the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021. And it has a lot of support. This is the headline from the New York Times today. Republicans struggle to derail increasingly popular stimulus package. A poll shows that $1.9 trillion rescue plan polls strongly across the country, including with many Republican voters, despite a scattershot series of attacks from congressional Republicans. On Friday, the House Budget Committee unveiled the bill that I'm going to show you, which includes billions of dollars for unemployment benefits, small businesses, and stimulus checks. Okay, so I'm going to focus on the targeted EIDL advances. A couple notes here. First, the tax treatment of targeted EIDL advances. I want to point this out. Amounts received from the SBA in the form of targeted EIDL advance shall not be included in the gross income of the person that receives such amounts. Number two, no deduction shall be denied, no tax attribute shall be reduced, and no basis increase shall be denied by reason of exclusion from gross income provided in the first paragraph here. Again, it's not taxable as well. You can take a look at this in detail, but that's the tax section where they wanted to clarify some of this. But let me get to the meat and potatoes here, section 6002 on page 320. In this section, the term administrator means the administrator of the SBA, the term covered entity and economic loss have the meanings given the terms in section 331A of the December bill, and 3, the term severely impacted small business means a covered entity that has suffered an economic loss of greater than 50%, employs not more than 10 employees. So if and when this bill and this text gets passed, the administrator has 14 days to enact this subsection. I mean, we were all waiting last time for the required, I think, 14 days as well, or maybe it was 21 days. And we were waiting Sunday night for it to come out because that's what had happened with the CARES Act back in 2020. And that didn't happen. So despite this saying 14 days here, the SBA makes its own deadlines. I don't know if there's an enforcement mechanism to hold the SBA accountable, but in the last bill, they did not follow the 14 days. I just want to point that out. So in that time period, the SBA will begin processing applications for supplemental payments to severely impacted small businesses. So that's $5,000 to the severely impacted small businesses. And number 2, continue to process applications for the payments described in paragraph 1. And I assume it will be a similar method where the SBA will invite folks by email. And so there's language here on the order of operations, but I'm going to loop back to that. I just want to point out how much we're talking about here. Appropriations, $15 billion right here. So that's an additional $15 billion to remain available until expended for carrying out this section. By the way, there's also support for restaurants as well, which is good news. I'm not going to get into that in this video. But here's what I want to point out, and I'd love to hear you chime in, because I know many of us become armchair legal experts when we read the legislation and we interpret it. What do they mean? How is the SBA going to interpret this law and carry it out? That's a lot of the discussion that happens here. Here's my take. When I first read this, I thought, oh, great. Does that mean that they are removing the low-income provision? Because it is not explicitly said here in the text. They say only 50% economic loss, which many businesses, frankly, can qualify for. I mean, so many businesses have been hard hit. We already know that's the majority of businesses. The long tail of businesses is basically a few folks. But I think it's odd the way it's written, and here's why. It still refers to the covered entity definition of the previous bill, and it references the bill right here, 331A. Well, what's 331A? Here's 331A, Targeted EIDL Advance for Small Business, Continuity, Adaptation, and Resiliency. A lot of jargon in that title, but basically what it meant was located in a low-income community. This is the problem, that so many of you are struggling small businesses. You happen to live on the wrong side of the street or on the wrong side of town. And I think it's just terrible because it has nothing to do with the reality of your business and whether you need it or not. It's more where you live and where you can afford to live. And 3, has suffered economic loss of greater than 30%. Okay, so we know that a lot of people can qualify for this, but this is the covered entity. And this section basically whittles down who's eligible within that covered entity definition. So whether you think it's fair or not, I'd love to hear in the comments, but that's the way I read it, because basically it says that that previous definition is the umbrella definition. And within that, assuming that they will run out of funding, which I've said many times, I do not think they're going to run out of the $40 billion. Based on the numbers of who's applied before for EIDL advances, I think it was around 7 million folks have applied. 70+% of folks receive some amount of EIDL advance in the first round. So when you do the numbers and when we look at our app and see, well, who qualifies for, quote, low income versus not low income, we start to see that there should be, in theory, plenty of funding. $40 billion is a lot to give out, and now we're adding $15 billion more, okay? So that's $55 billion total for targeted EIDL advances and still having this low income provision. But here's the other piece that's important. This is a supplemental payment. This is giving more money to folks who qualify. So basically, you could get up to $15,000. So if you are a business that has already gotten an email from the SBA, maybe saying, oh, you can get the full $10,000, top up at $10,000, and you happen to also now be 10 or less employees and has suffered an economic loss of greater than 50%, well, there you go. You should qualify for an additional $5,000. So the SBA, I assume, will reach out to folks who they think meet this criteria. And again, 75% of you haven't gotten an email yet from the SBA. Of course, our data shows that around 35% of people qualify for this, so probably a good portion of the 75% of you may not get an email based on this legislation. But we remain hopeful and optimistic, and I always say, look, I think there's going to be plenty of funding, and I hope that the SBA will think creatively about how they can work within the legislation to help more businesses, help individuals like you, the folks watching our channel and supporting us. So that's the news. Basically, you may have an opportunity to get an additional $5,000 from the SBA in the coming weeks and months. We'll keep you posted there as this goes through the legislative process. The House has said they may vote on it this week, then it will go to the Senate, then it will get to Biden's desk, assuming it passes the House and the Senate, sometime in March. And of course, the stimulus checks will be a part of that. That's today's quick news. Thank you so much for tuning in and subscribing. And don't forget, go to HelloSkip in the App Store and Google Play to download our free app. Just set up a free tracker and you are entered to win $1,000. We will pick a winner on Monday and we will pick a winner the following Monday as well. Thanks again. Have a great weekend. Stay well, stay healthy, and we'll see you tomorrow.